Welcome to the Legendarium Green Team. I'm your host, Kyptan, and with me today are Stormrunner,
Hello, how's it going?
Hurinfan,
Read books on your phones.
and Lord Ash.
Huron is wrong about that. Don't do that to yourselves, guys. He's getting paid by someone. I don't know who.
Read books on your phones, guys. Today,
Ooh.
we're going to be covering the second half of Too Like the Lightning, the first book of the Terra Ignota series by Ada Palmer, a book that I have read on my phone and have yet actually to read in paper, to my great dismay.
Wait, so I thought you had an e-reader.
I do have an e-reader.
Oh,
I thought you had done all formats.
I have not completed the first three books in paper. I have read them partially in paper, but not completely.
Okay.
I own a
Because
Kindle as well.
library loans and I don't get along.
Okay.
I made the move from Kindle to phone because the phone's better.
And I search every bookshop that I go to for first editions of these books and have not found them, except in perhaps the stars.
Okay.
wow.
I want a nice hardcover set of this series.
I was
One day
I was
that will
wondering,
happen.
Yeah.
Oh,
Oh,
Huron.
okay.
Huron.
He's not reading them anyways. You can probably just ship them over to you.
I like to look at them.
Oh, no, books should be functional.
They
They are
are
functional.
functional.
I can read them. In fact, I'm reading it right now.
There's a lovely part in perhaps the stars where a character says, like, and then a character turns the page, and then you yourself have to turn the page. It's great.
Oh, there we go. I bet that's totally messed up when you're using the phone.
I bet it does not appear at all in the phone.
Hmm.
I didn't know there were like hard because it seems like the trade paperbacks are like the main ones you'll see in
This one
stores.
too.
It seems like, yeah.
Yeah. So I thought we could take a step back on this one. And now that you have seen from the beginning to the end of Too Like the Lightning, let's not skip immediately to the end. Let's go.
Sorry, can I correct you first?
Sure.
You really should put air quotes over end there.
Yeah, that's true. This really was just a book blatantly chopped in half.
That Mycroft tells you.
I refer to this book as an introduction for a reason.
Yeah.
It's book 1, part 1.
It sets up all the players. It explains to you why we care about them, somewhat.
Yeah. Gives us intellectual research.
Yeah. I am excited to immediately move on into Seven Surrenders this week. But
Yeah.
for now, let's restrain ourselves to the middle of this book. Let's talk about the chapter, The 10th Director. Let's go into spoilers because there's no other way to talk about this book than going into spoilers, other than you guys clearly thinking that it didn't have an ending.
Yeah. It was not even like a proper cliffhanger setup. I don't think it kind of ends.
It's also funny because you have like the meta fourth wall thing of Mycroft.
Yeah, I hated that actually.
That it like like he literally says, "Hey, this is like part one of the." I forget how he phrases it, but it's.
I think I'd be more forgiving if the author on the front of the cover was actually Mycroft Canner instead of Ada Palmer. I'd be like, okay, this is
This is a real apology.
I'm going to buy into this idea that we just have this book that's written from the future, written from Mycroft Canner. Yeah, I just publishing all that. I understand these things have to be made. I just didn't like the way that it was done.
It felt to me like the editor was like, okay, this book you've written is too big. We need to cut in half, and you have 37 minutes to make the necessary adjustments before I send it off to the printer.
Ouch. Ouch.
I mean, he's not wrong.
I can't defend otherwise. Yeah, no. But I do think that once you learn to accept books in a half-finished state, it makes you happier.
Hey, I spent a long time defending. Well, not even like I don't care if it's chopped in half. Really, it's just like it was very blatant here. It was very blatant, like for Peace Talks and Battlegrounds, the Jim Butcher Dresden series as well. It's fine. I don't really mind.
I agree. Not a big deal. I just didn't like how it was handled.
Yeah.
Publishing is what it is. It's just a little bit annoying in execution.
Personally, I prefer like maybe an afterword or a forward explaining the process instead of an in-text reason.
That could help, for sure. But no publisher wants you to say, hey, my publisher made me split this up in the book itself.
Steve
Nobody
Erickson
wants
did.
that.
That's
In
what
which
he
book?
says. Dust of Dreams.
Yeah, isn't that
Okay.
Is that
That's not his debut novel.
No, it wasn't.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, wasn't that 9 and 10 he happened with?
Yeah.
Yeah, he has a special relationship with his publisher at that point, as I'm sure that Dr. Palmer has with hers at this point. though probably not as special as, say, Steven Erickson or
Hopefully someday.
Jim Butcher or Brandon Sanderson.
Oh, definitely not Brandon.
We're rooting for you, Dr. Palmer.
Yeah.
I'm for sure rooting for Dr. Palmer. And I'm sure that Dr. Palmer has an entirely different relationship with her academic publishers.
No, Dr. Palmer, you too one day can push her on Audible.
One day there will be a smell track to Two Like the Lightning, and I will rejoice.
I don't know. Not if Thisbe made it.
If Thisbe made it, I might have questions. But if Kato made it, it would be lovely, right?
If it didn't kill me, yeah, maybe.
Maybe.
It's like targeted assassination.
Sorry, this assassination is only for Two Like the Lightning readers.
It's only for specifically Hurin when he reads To Like the Lightning.
That means
Cool.
I'm tertiarily important, so I'll take it.
Yeah.
Since Huron has taken off the spoiler gloves, let's go in. And let's talk about the source of power in this world.
Mm.
Who wants to agree with Marx? Who wants to agree with Francois Quesnay? Who wants to agree with the Utopians or Mitsubishi?
They all seem to be most worried about the Mitsubishi. Generally, like that scene now there's also an asterisk there because the Mitsubishi also have their whole putting spies into all the hives thing going on. But like the land grab economic resource stuff seems to come up the most in terms of perceived threats to stability. But certainly there are obviously other takes on that.
I think that we're just biased by a picture we're given by half a book so far. I won't say any more because, of course, I read book 2. But yeah, what we've seen so far, it seems like Mitsubishi are given most of the attention in terms of perceived threats. Yeah.
To me, it seems that the biggest problem with Mitsubishi is that they have a lot of land, but since they don't have a lot of people, like if a war breaks out, they can't defend it at all. Like, I don't know if you can talk about pure like economic terms here. Like there's so much tension in this world. I would probably give the power to the Masons in this situation.
Big
Because
surprise.
Yeah, just the most people. The most people, probably the most hierarchical structure, most suited for like military organization. I don't know.
Having nothing to do with just the Roman similarities.
Yeah, let's
Yeah,
give the
and of
power to
course,
the absolute monarch and the majority, or soon to be majority. Yeah. Fascist.
they're as we all know, every authoritarian system is fascist.
Of course.
That's what the word means.
Yeah, of course.
It's a very rosy picture of an authoritarian system that the Masons have. You know, like he really does seem like an enlightened despot, Cornel Mason.
Okay, let's get back on topic. I know it's going to be hard to drag you away from your Masons right now, but I'm talking about the source of things in the Terra Ignota universe and just in general in the normal universe.
Bridger? God? The god of this universe, this world? Bridger? Is that who you're talking about? Or could you be or could you be less opaque?
Or Jed.
A valid answer that none of the directors are considering.
Well, it seems to be someone makes a direct comparison of Bridger and Jed. It might be Mycroft, right?
He does, yes.
It's also Carlisle.
Oh no, it's Carlisle.
It's Carlisle who compares the two. Yep.
Yeah.
He's like, there's another one. Bum, bum,
That is the
bum.
end of this book. Yes.
Yeah.
There are two.
I mean, Dominic also does, sort of indirectly.
Yeah, but Dominic says, I found the god of this universe, and then it's really funny because he's calling him all sorts of names, and he's specifically referring to Bridger, though.
Yes.
So, yeah, the source of everything. I assume, are you talking about Bridger, or are you talking about something else? Like
I'm talking about
more-
something else. I'm talking specifically about the source as capitalized in the chapter The 10th Directorate, where the Mitsubishi say that the source is land and nature. And the Masons say humanity, and maybe the Utopians say imagination.
Is that when Jed comes with his question of like, how many people do you have? And he's making a point.
I'll give you the full quote. Faced with this question, a cousin might answer the heart, a European the past, a humanist themself, a Brillist the psyche, a utopian imagination. All are pieces of the Masonic answer, humanity. Only the Mitsubishi place the source outside humanity in nature. In this thought, you are the most alone. This is what Sugiyama thought.
I really am skeptical that the Mitsubishi have all that much power in the land that they've acquired. It only works so long as the system is stable. But if the
Yeah,
system
Yeah.
becomes
it's
unstable,
getting unstable
yeah,
like it is now. That's a problem.
yeah.
They can have all the land, but if people aren't going to pay rent, they're just going to go against the Mitsubishi. Then it's all gone.
Then I'm inclined to swing over to say that it's probably the Masons then in terms of like human capital or number of people ultimately being a like deciding factor if there were to be like when it would come to like a power struggle of whatever sort.
I mean, out of all of those things that you read, humanity makes most sense because it's most encompassing. So yeah, I suppose they win.
I would give it the balance of power to the people who have the largest, most unified population. I don't know if that's the Masons because maybe a lot of people are just defaulting. But like we actually know virtually nothing about any of the common folk in this world so far. So who knows why they're choosing any hive over another?
Nope, only the most important people in the world in this tale.
Well,
Yeah.
it seems like I don't know. I think expediency maybe the biggest reason people are choosing the Masons. If they're so popular, they're like, okay, well, let's just move to the Masons because everybody else is doing it. Yeah, you get supposedly a benevolent dictator. That's fine for most people. I mean, most people are apathetic, right? And if you choose one of the other hives based on like ideals, if you don't have any strong ideals, what's the point? Might as well go with the strong guys.
And you go Greylaw, except people don't like Greylaw because there's not enough of them to be an attractive option.
Yeah, you can't forget about community too.
They're also the ones too pansy to be black laws.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I like no murder in my set of laws. I don't want to rely on people's goodwill about me to prevent them from murdering me. That's not a strategy that's worked in the past.
Simply make yourself formidable.
I don't want to. I want to read books all day.
In short, the Mitsubishi are wrong, but I think wanting to protect land is a noble pursuit. I wonder if it has anything to do with I don't know, Shinto beliefs or maybe some proto, I don't know, modern religion folk beliefs from East Asia.
I like the Mitsubishi system because it does acknowledge things other than humanity as having inherent value in the world. I do like that they place value on forests and trees and wildlife preserves and seemingly are one of the only few to like actually enshrine those protections in their governmental structure. You get more points for having a forest than you do for a factory. You get more for that than you do for like an apartment building or a tenancy. I do draw the line when Mitsubishi get no points for coming up with ideas.
Well, just become a utopian.
Not a huge fan of that. Yeah.
You ever seen like old videos of hippies and they're like talk about land? And you're like, man, you can't own land, man. I kind of actually
Yes.
do believe that, and I appreciate that about many Native American cultures.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that's kind of the law system in which we live under, and it's nearly impossible to change and it's entrenched. But I honestly do kind of believe that.
I would go just one step further and say the concept of ownership is pretty nonsense, but kind of necessary nonsense for society to function.
Yeah.
But does it have to be personally owned?
I don't think it works at any level really, but
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't want to get into that.
yeah, that's a whole
we're
thing.
yeah. Moving on. Yeah. A different discussion.
Okay. Okay. Let's go a little bit step further in and
Oh wait, one last thing about the Mitsubishi.
yep.
Democracy is just a terrible idea.
Well, democracy is an
Well,
insult for their governmental system. So yes. I agree. I completely agree. Democracy is not great.
and I learned
Yeah, like-
democracy from this book, so thank you, Dr. Palmer.
Yeah.
Wasn't it mentioned in the Republic? You read the Republic here.
Yeah, but maybe I wasn't paying attention. I like fiction. Or maybe I was reading a different translation. I don't know.
Maybe.
I had a professor once upon a time who graded his exams based on how much of the Republic you could quote at him from memory. I did not like that class.
It's a terrible way to
It
do
sounds
it.
like somebody didn't
that's,
quote enough.
That's
I did
something
not,
that
no.
Socrates himself would have absolutely hated.
Maybe the teacher hated Socrates.
Maybe.
he would have loved the uncritically repeating his work.
Yeah.
Back without any without any further thought would be exactly his whole. His
He would
idea.
talk at that professor until the professor got irritated at him and then quit the conversation,
Yep.
asking leading questions.
Why do you want me to quote me?
Let's move on from my terrible professor. One of our leading narrative threads in the second half of the book is Thisbe and Carlisle as like a buddy cop duo trying to investigate J.E.D.D. Mason and his life. What was the most revealing part of that journey that you found? And who wants to try a carnivore role?
Carnivore?
What?
roll? Like the
The carnivore roll is the thing that Chagatai was making the entire time they were talking.
oh right, yes.
First of all, I want Chagatai's kitchen. Like
Yeah, that was cool.
multiple services that automatically are set at different temperatures, and yeah.
Yeah, they were cool.
I want a kitchen tree and a meat maker.
The brothel that runs the world is a big part.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he wants to specifically talk about Chagatai and her relationship with Dominic and Jed, Tycoon, right? And Carlisle continuing to be such a prude.
You can pick out Chagatai as interesting. I think Chagatai is super interesting.
Are you talking about the whole investigation or just when they met Chagatai?
The whole investigation.
Yeah, I'd say
Oh.
that the brothel that runs the world is the
If you want to be contrarian and not mention that,
I'm just gonna piggyback off Ash, but Thisbe is just so boring. Well, that's kind of what I
It's so
learned.
boring.
oh really?
Carlo is great as a contrast to Thisbe, and Carlo is really interesting, even though he's such a prude and just continually getting like his earth shattered. But Thisbe, she's just so boring.
Yeah, I would say Carlisle, and this isn't about a specific relation that they have, but when they're approaching the brothel, the entire section of like with Carlisle's tracker going off, like, oh, you shouldn't be here, and that whole discussion around like cousin hypocrisy and to what extent are the cousins hypocrites for.
Yeah, and then we find out that she's been doing murders.
Yeah, she's been doing hit. She has no place to criticize it for it, and she's just been hating on the cousins and anybody who's not humanist anyway. And then she has the gall to criticize him for like having ways around these stupid rules that they have. If you have these rules and they have good ways around them, why not use them? It's actually his explanation for how they get around these rules actually made a lot of sense to me,
It seemed fairly reasonable.
even though the head of his hive is just terrible.
Yeah, I was gonna say like then you Casal is basically like the rules don't matter and
I know my hive has these ideas,
Yeah.
and I have the same ideas, or at least I pretend to, and then I just break them behind the rules so I
She
can.
used to have those ideas.
Yeah,
And then the brothel that runs the world,
it's basically like a super bash, basically of like
Got its wires into her.
yeah, it's like all the world leaders are basically in a bash together.
yeah.
It's kind of a corruption of the idea of a bash, isn't it? Because
yes,
part of being a bash is that it is your family, and this is like your secret family.
and really, really unhealthy, especially with all the people in power, like having sometimes literally incestuous relationships.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
Yeah, yeah. Ganymede and Danae are technically not incestuous if you want to really limit the scope of what makes things incestuous.
yeah. That's because that's how people usually talk about these kind of subjects, right?
This is how power works. It always seems decentralized. And of course, Dr. Palmer is very familiar with European politics, and boy, oh, were the Habsburgs just kind of making their own show things.
Who would you think is the Habsburg analog here? Do you think it is the top players of the group, or do you think it's the sets that Danae and Ando are trying to raise?
I would say it's the top players in this context. Okay, they're the ones that seem to be calling the shots. And then the set infiltration family seems like a further corruption of the system now.
Oh God, I loved when Felix Faust just laid into them about those
Asked if he could speak
stupid
frankly.
sets. Yeah, that was great. Like he's an a-hole, but I don't know. Maybe he's not wrong.
When he called them disgusting monstrosities.
Sets do not seem ethical to me.
To be fair, like Felix Faust is first of all an a-hole, and second of all, very, very, very biased. And we've met Eureka, who I mean, she's a set, and she seems pretty cool, right? And happy.
Yeah.
Although wasn't she being really mean to Kato?
Yeah, when he was like he wanted to hide. Yeah.
Everyone seems to be a little mean to Kato.
You know what? Kato's the only good person.
Eureka, through inaction, was a
And
little
he's
mean
still
to Kato.
murdering people. I don't know. I just want to protect Kato, even though he's murdering people.
All that Eureka refused to do was relay a message from Kato to the Sensei.
She's mean. She's just mean. Maybe it's because she's a monstrosity.
Who's mean? Like Julia or sorry, Eureka.
Eureka.
I mean, let's talk about how Sniper treats Kato if we want to talk about mean siblings. I think it's Sniper that sets the tone in that house of how to abuse Kato with saying like, hello, murderer. as the
Yeah.
way to greet him in the morning, and forcing him to put on a play in front of hundreds of very important people, and making him play Frankenstein and saying, "We've gone beyond the laws of God and man."
After knowing how many times he's tried to kill himself. What an
Yep.
a-hole.
Yeah,
What
Sniper
an
seems like the worst
a-hole.
person.
And he's the most like popular, right?
I don't know, Madame seems worse.
Really, Madame seems worse. Interesting. She seems fine to me.
I think Thisbe seems worse.
What? She's the leader of this, like, very unhealthy, terrible bash of all the world's leaders and trying to bring back, like, regressive gender politics.
It depends on how you feel about the thing. Like, I don't really buy that it's regressive necessarily. Sorry, it's regressive in the strictest sense, as in it's something that was previous. But whether or not it's negative is something that's up for debate.
We have a question from Sungamer. Do you think the Desaad Club is effective at being a vent for this society? Are they correct that gender play is necessary to vent that feeling? Does their embrace of the 18th century hurt the world or aid it?
I think if they weren't, like, trying to base himself off Desaad, maybe I'd be, more for it, but this guy was messed up. I mean, the only libertine I've ever met who actually called themselves a libertine in real life was the biggest asshole I've ever met in my life. And so I don't
Mhm.
have a good opinion of this guy. And then I've read parts of what 100 Days of Sodom. I thought it was one of the most disgusting things I've ever read. And then I believe Ash said that that's the word sadism comes from. I mean,
Yeah.
this doesn't seem
Yep.
healthy. It doesn't seem like a healthier environment they're making. It doesn't seem like a positive environment they're making, nor an ethical one, and that's not what they're going for in the least.
I mean, Carlisle, I think it was Carlisle, did believe Bisbee when she was mentioning that they want to kidnap you and turn you and force you to become a black law. Like she thought that, yeah, like
Yep.
Bisbee agreed to that, or sorry, Carlisle bought that. So that yeah, as far as the environment selling a uh, not so great moral situation is not the phrase I'm looking for, but yeah, definitely unhealthy elements of it. But I think in the context of the world, I think something like that is inevitable. Or given how the world is structured, I think something like that brothel was inevitable to some degree.
You mean they repressed these gendered thoughts and gendered
Yes.
emotions so much that people needed an outlet?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. That I think regardless of whether it's good or bad, that it was going to happen in some form.
Yeah, I could see that, yeah.
And to me, it feels extremely Jungian. Like this aspect of society, the sex, gender, and religion, is this kind of shadow that is being repressed by society at large, and now it
Oh.
manifests in all these ways. Yeah, like I agree. Like the club seems questionable, but I think to what extent you can blame that on these gender roles, and to what extent you can blame it on the society's repression and society's outlawing of these gender roles is very much an open question. Like I think it goes back to just like, okay, do you believe that human nature is one way or is the other way? And if it's one way, then repression won't have positive effects. And if it's the other way, perhaps it's not repression, it's just not having a culture that's set up to produce these effects in the first place.
Sorry, for our listeners, I would just like to correct Ash, and when he said Jungian, he actually meant Jungian.
Chunky.
I know how to read.
Do you think, though, that this world has been created without gender at all?
No, it is operating within a larger historical context for sure, right?
Okay.
And so that's. I don't think Dr. Palmer is taking a hard stance on this. I think Dr. Palmer is leaving enough ambiguity in her story so that the reader is forced to interrogate what they themselves believe and perhaps challenge their beliefs.
Okay. I think that a gender brothel is invariably going to sprout up in any situation where it is legal in this Terra Ignota universe, and it does seem to be under Black Law auspices. But I do not think that a gender brothel in the explicit philosophy of Desaad is inevitable, or at least not one nearly as successful as this one.
Yeah, I agree with that.
But it does make me wonder, what else has Carlyle seen to think that this might be okay? That this might be one of the like totally acceptable things that they just have to suck up and bear it in their extremely pluralistic society.
I think it's not something he's seen, it's just something he's listened to because of all their sophistry.
Yep. But I like wonder what a Canarite brothel might look like.
Ugh.
Well,
Constant canner beat in the background.
More of a buffet, I would imagine.
Putting that meat maker to the test, and then beyond.
You are sick.
I do wonder, what else in this world have we not seen that we don't have the experience that Carlisle has had, that we would never consider this gender brothel to be as plausible as Carlisle seems to consider it?
I mean, it does seem to me to be the case that, like, while they're not allowed to talk about gender in the wider world, it still seems to be having a pretty enormous effect. As Madam notices, even like in the highest echelons of power, it's like almost exclusively men.
Males.
Yeah, probably males. I'm more agnostic on that.
When they were talking to Thisbe and explaining the
Mostly
purpose of the
males.
brothel, and
Okay.
yeah, they said of the 710 list, I think 6 of the 7 were all males, which means like they recognize
Yep.
sex and sexual differences, except for in Sniper, which nobody does.
yes.
It's just not necessarily gender, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and then the one female seems to be the cousin,
Yeah,
which
the
is
cousin.
essentially the female hive, right?
Yeah,
Yeah. The mom of the world, as Mycroft puts it.
Yeah,
I love the cousins.
not a good mom.
Brought this up in the last episode, but Denai is the other big example where gender seems to play a role in terms of like her sexuality plays a big role in terms of how people receive her, and certainly like how she interacts with our world leader Bash.
Yeah.
And it seems to be like an unspoken emphasis that the regular neutral clothing that everyone is forced to wear is kind of like really ugly, and no one really likes it. So they
I don't
dress up
believe
in.
that.
You don't believe that? Like just
No.
kind of like shapeless bags that aren't made to accentuate any features.
Yeah, I don't believe that either. Especially like the way
Nope.
that the griffin cloth is described. Come on, how cool is that?
Well, don't the Masons have like their suits that they mostly wear?
They do.
Yeah,
We have the boots too.
I want Griffin cloths so badly, but
The Mitsubishi jackets and kimonos sound fantastic to me with their color changing dyes. Yeah.
Yeah, interesting patterns on them, but you can't have anything that is like tailored, right? Because then that'll accentuate sexual differences generally,
I know you
right?
can have things that are tailored. It's just not standard.
Yeah, but like
But for example, like Sniper goes topless.
yeah, after like yeah, Sniper has the Amazon treatment where they
Well,
haven't grown
Sniper may
breasts.
have the Amazon treatment
Yeah,
or may
may,
not.
yeah. Like I think Sniper is like a special case, and like Sniper is like perfectly androgynous.
Yeah, but unlike
Yes.
religion, gender is not outlawed, and talking about gender is not outlawed. It's just a taboo.
Yeah, I mean, to what extent are
Mostly.
there laws regarding it?
We will find that out much later, but there's no clear separation between gender and religion in this world, which forbids discussion of both.
Okay, I was wrong.
people seem to have much stronger feelings on religion than on the discussion of religion than gender.
Is it true? Is it just we gotten so much of Carlisle's POV, and he's
maybe,
especially touchy? You can't do that. What did he just do? It's like, oh, calm down, Carlisle.
You can't.
You got your
The-
pants
I
in
can.
bunch.
I just did. You mean I mustn't? I shouldn't. Oh, I shall endeavor to help that approach truth.
I think the fact that the religious talk between Julia and Dominic like was viewed as this like forbidden kink that I think that's more indicative of how that certainly the whole brothel is playing with gender, having gender being an out front idea, but yeah, I think that type of example.
So, for anyone who is unaware, chapter 29, where Dominic and Julia have their dialogue, that is very explicitly in the style of Desaad. It is a ton of dialogue, not a lot of character movements or interactions. You get some sounds, but it's philosophizing interjected with periods of sex
And rape and murder.
and rape.
Threats
Discuss
of rape and murder.
rape and murder. Yes, threats of.
Oh, also, can we? I referred to Dominic as evil in the last episode, and I was chided for making a value judgment on him. I think I have some vindication there now.
What do we think Dominic and Julia say about the Senseiers Conclave?
Total nonsense.
And what do we think Jed's trust in
not good
Dominic
things.
says about Jed?
Jed needs an angel.
I know more about Jed, so I'm not saying anything.
You mean the most important person on the planet?
Do you think Martin Guildbreaker would not make a perfect little angel on your shoulder?
Yeah, Angel and Devil.
He,
Or would you call that Mycroft Canner?
So I have gone back to not really knowing what role Mycroft Canner is playing in all this. Clearly, I think it's very interesting that I think this is like the first Middle Eastern historical name that we know is like his lover, former bashmate,
and accomplice.
whose name is Saladin, famous counter crusader Saladin.
I thought it was Saladin.
Yeah,
There's
Saladin.
so many
Yep.
like that's a Anglicism in the first place, or it's a Europeanization of the name in the first place. It's like the proper name is like Salah al-Din, like separated.
I'm sure you got that correct.
I did not.
Forget it more than I did.
But it's like something like the light of faith or the might of faith or something like that.
Gotcha.
Is what his name actually means.
Did anyone else think that like Saladin was not real the first time they met him?
No, but I've heard this before from other people.
Mycroft is severely sleep deprived, and then suddenly his imaginary friend comes back and he's like, "I'm here. I love you. I'm crazy." And he's been talking about like his other half and like how he can't go back. And I'm like, maybe this is just a figment of his imagination where it's like the evil part of Mycroft and like he's I don't know, like spoilers for a Fight Club, but like a Fight Club thing.
No, I think he's real. I mean, I think the book seems to be like revealing more. We're getting big world building stuff fairly late in the book, and Saladin just kind of felt like that. So I just kind of like, okay, this is kind of weird that he's being introduced now. Like, what is this? Like, why was this not mentioned before? But also, I was thinking of it in the context of, okay, this is part one of book one. So
It is the first time that Mycroft admits to feeling sexual.
point.
That was my takeaway from the Saladin chapter.
It was an interesting kind of subversion, right? Because like Mycroft before in the book is like making such a big deal about how women are all witches and they're using their wiles on him and whatnot. And then, like the first
Stormrunner's
time.
Mycroft.
Huh?
Yes.
What'd you say?
I said Stormrunner is Mycroft.
Oh, absolutely. I'm glad
Yeah,
I'm not Mycroft anymore.
Yeah, everything about his character that's me.
Just hates women.
Yeah.
You put Danae
Yes,
in
'cause
front of you and you'll be spilling your secrets in an instant.
Right. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Because that's the worst. Those are the worst parts about Mycroft.
Secrets, that's a new euphemism I've ever heard.
Wow. Okay. Shall we talk about Mycroft
that's pretty good.
and his crimes?
Yeah, let's talk about Mycroft and his crimes. They seem so directed to me.
Do you think his comparison to Jean Valjean and his innocent crime of stealing a loaf of bread still warrants comparison?
It's basically the same thing.
Yeah. I think it warrants contrast.
I mean, the relationship between Papa and him, I think that's a valid comparison. But yeah, other than that, it's obviously not the same.
If the people that he killed were nobodies, I might be more willing to compare it to Jean Valjean. Because, I mean, nobodies are basically worth less than food. But they were really important people.
I have heard that Papa does contain an element of Javert, but more importantly, his foundational source comes from an anime that I have yet to watch.
What's the anime?
Dr. Palmer, I'm very disappointed in you.
Lupin the Third or something?
I've heard of that. Yeah.
Lupin. You never seen Lupin the Third?
No, I've not.
Lupin the
I heard of it.
Third. Lupin's awesome. I take back my my insult, Dr. Palmer. Seriously, no one's ever seen Lupin? I've even seen Lupin.
I
I've
need
never heard
to.
of it.
I know I need to. And specifically the whole thing about like handcuffing Mycroft at all times
Zenigata, yeah, he does that.
comes from Zenigata.
I love Zenigata.
Special handcuffs. Like, what are these? What's so special with these handcuffs?
It's
Is that
Canner
a
gel.
spoiler?
It's made from Mycroft Canner.
Okay.
It's utopian. That's on the.
It
It's
is
a
yeah.
utopian tech that they devised in his 2 weeks of murder spree to catch him and restrain him once he was found.
Didn't he give himself up? Did he say?
No, they caught him red-handed.
They did catch him. Okay.
He wasn't able to complete his murder spree.
It was just Tully that was left. Yeah.
Yep. He was only able to take 17 lives, not 18, not 16, 17.
And Saladin has been doing like absolutely nothing in the interim.
Yeah, Saladin should have killed her or them.
Well, Tully's been on the moon this whole time.
Well, isn't
You just
Saladin
ask the
Utopian?
Utopians, like, "Hey, I never been to the moon. Let me go."
Yeah, free
Okay.
subsidy, right?
Isn't Saladin a utopian?
Saladin's nobody. Nobody knows he exists.
Saladin is wearing
he
a
had-
utopian
didn't he have-
coat.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Because that doesn't necessarily mean he's utopian.
He probably stole it because he's an.
Like Apollo's
Yes.
code, I imagine, eh?
Oh, hey,
Oh, no.
it might be Apollo's coat. Who knows?
He killed a god and then took his stuff. That's pretty cool.
There's no corollary for that in the Odyssey or the Iliad at all. Nope.
I was thinking God of War.
Eyebrow.
No, but yeah, I like Ash's point about the crimes feeling very directed, I think is.
Including their extremity.
Well,
Yes.
yes.
The torture, the rape, mutilation, the cannibalism, all of that.
Is all very specific.
Felt like an accident.
It seemed like he did.
Whoops.
Yeah,
Please theorize about the purpose.
I mean, outside of some perversion of his, I don't know, some perverted part of his psyche, I don't have a specific thing. I mean, certainly, like he obviously had a thing for, I don't know, but there was something twisted in him that wanted those specific things for those specific people. But
So I'll theorize. I'm just gonna say I think this is Jungian. I think this is Mycroft trying to force the world to acknowledge this shadowy part of themselves that this society is not letting them express. There have been references to
Young.
him wanting them to wanting them to execute him so that they all become murderers, so that they become incensed with rage and just have to grapple with this undercurrent that simply isn't acknowledged most of the time, to make them feel things that they don't feel under the system, or to think unacceptable thoughts.
no, that makes sense because I was trying to figure out. He clearly had. I was thinking, is this part of a quote unquote bring down the system type of thing with Mycroft in terms of is he trying to make the whole thing collapse? Which maybe he is, but that makes more sense with what the type of story that Dr. Palm was trying to tell, and would functionally prove the system not explicitly wrong, but point out.
He was to put a mirror up to society, man.
Yeah. To me, it's confounded by the idea that he killed these people for another reason as well. Like they were doing something, or they were onto something. Tully is now perpetuating this, what perhaps message they were trying to spread about how society was going to collapse, and he needs them all to die so that this message isn't spread. So maybe it's like a twisted attempt at reforming the system is what he's trying to do, rather than just have like complete revolution, like I guess Tully is trying to foment.
How do you think this ties into Kohaku's numbers?
I have no idea where those were going, but yeah.
He's trying to discredit them, clearly. Like he's done nothing. Like every time the numbers have come up, he's like, they're wrong. They're totally wrong. Marty didn't have any idea how close the hives are. Maybe he didn't know about this interconnected brothel. But Mycroft knows.
Jed had barely been born.
It's true. Yeah, Jed hadn't been born yet.
He
So,
couldn't even
yeah.
read Plato yet.
Yeah, Bridger hadn't been born. Maybe when did he find Bridger? Did he find Bridger before or after he committed his crimes?
After.
Do we know? After? Okay.
After.
Before
Bridger
or
was taught
after he was made a servicer?
Bridger seems to be about the right age to have been born basically the day that Apollo Mojave died.
Okay.
That's probably not that important.
Specific. Yeah.
Was he trying to trigger the birth of Bridger or something? I don't know.
I don't think anybody knows exactly how old Bridger is. He just looks that age. He looks that age. Because Bridger was raised by plastic soldiers, but he was already like 3 years old at that point.
And then
No,
when
he-
Bridger, when Mycroft found Bridger, like the axis of his world turned, it seems, and now he wants he wants to rage Bridger apart from Jed, and then bring them together so that these two gods can meet and create like some kind of a perfect world together.
Yeah. You got the
Yeah.
god with all the ideas and the god with all the power.
Yeah,
Bring them
so
together. What do you get?
Jed can like climb inside of Bridger like some kind of mecha or like puppet, and is like, okay, do this now, do this.
I somehow think that the words that Mycroft said to Cornell Mason were important and related to his crimes when Cornell got really angry at him for quote unquote quoting Apollo.
Yeah, I do think that those words are important.
What did he say again?
If you can save this,
No, the exact words are important.
yeah, I don't want to butcher it, please.
Yep, I will search this up.
If you had something so wonderful that it seemed that it might, that given the chance, it would make a better world for everyone forever, so much better. But first there was a danger, a terrible, terrible danger that it could rip everything we have apart. Would you destroy that better world to save this world? The wine fell from Mason's hands, black sleeved and gray, seized me by the rough weave of my habit and hurled me to the floor. Get out of my sight. What, Caesar? I never speak Apollo's words again. Get out.
That's the whole. That's like the whole dialogue that when we get the flashback, right?
No, that's in real time. The flashbook is I don't know what Saint Marty was doing with that Apollo's with us and not with her, but I remember him stretched out on his back, his coat mimicking the grass beneath, so he seemed like a spirit only half born out of the earth, still wrapped in nature. Would you destroy a better world to save this one?
That's a great line.
That's a great line.
And I guess Apollo was doing a version of the Iliad, or there's something called the Iliad that Apollo had that Tully wants back.
He was rewriting the Iliad with sci-fi robots.
Aha.
Has someone done that before? I'd read that.
Yes, Dan Simmons.
Yeah, that's what I
Oh.
was just going to reference. Like, okay, Dan Simmons' Hyperion Cantos. This feels like an idea lifted directly from that.
Oh no, I was talking about his Ilium and Olympos books.
Oh, yes, yeah, true.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah. No, I'm referencing the Martin Silenis's. Oh, the poet is rewriting
Yes.
this mythology. Yeah, no, but he also did that literally with Ilium and Olympus. Yeah, not as well.
Not as well. No. I did not appreciate his robots in that book series nearly as much as I appreciated them in Hyperion.
Mm-hmm.
This is kind of an aside. I thought I had is that to bring it up the Hyperion Canto, so that I haven't been this intrigued is not quite the right word, but like wanting to find out more about this world and felt this drive to just know all this stuff. I haven't felt that drive since like high school when I was reading the Hyperion Cantos and like
Awesome.
we're getting a lot of the cool. Yeah. That was kind of a random side thought that I had, but
I want to say this read, I was a lot more engaged with the plot than I was my first time. Like, it's actually really exciting.
You know what? I agree. I think the plot's great second time around.
is there a plot right now?
There's definitely a plot. I think it's flashing between being very interesting and intriguing and like quite boring.
Yeah. What's your investment in the 7-10 lists at this point, Ash and Storm?
0. Still don't care.
I'm interested because the characters care about it, but I'm still trying to make the connections and figure out why. Outside of the idea of this is a like time top 10 list, like what
You don't accept the idea that it was stolen so that people would put their attention on the Senior Weeks Booth Bash or Bosch?
Look, once you get Martin Guildbreaker on the case.
No, that's true. That's a yeah.
Yeah, that part was more interesting. I've enjoyed the politicking and most of the characters that aren't in this Senior Weeks Booth Bash. Although, yes, I agree, Kato is the most interesting member of that particular group.
We also seem to get the most of like he gets his own kind of section as far as like backstory and such. To get a little more
Yeah.
of him.
How do you like the interview chapter about Cato?
Honestly, I like the whole Bosch except for Thisbe.
Even the typers, Robin
Maybe I
and Cat
forgot about
typer.
them. Oh, maybe I
Yeah,
forgot
see,
about
you
them.
forgot about them.
I-
They are the most forgettable Bash members by far. Partly because no one knows which one's which at any time.
Right. Okay, I remember them now.
How many
They're
members
like the
are
twins?
there in the bash? Sorry.
I don't know. I think there's like a dozen. There's Sniper, Occam, Leslie, Thisbe, Eureka, Sydney, Cato, Cat and Robin.
Who are Cat and Robin?
Okay.
Occam is probably... So Occam hasn't actually had that much page time, but what page time Occam
But
has had
I love it.
has been entirely forgettable. So I don't care. Occam has made no impression on me.
Occam has made the impression on me of a very confident executive officer.
He
What's
feels
his role
like a
again?
generically competent guy
He's the leader of the Six Hive transit system.
Didn't
Okay.
Mycroft describe him as like the only man in the world with a license to kill or something?
Not the only, but one of very few, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
He is licensed with a lethal firearm, which he carries as a mark of his station, and Mycroft is entirely obsessed with it every time Occam's on stage.
Also, he's a head of the Bosch that's just killing people.
Yeah. And Jed says, well, a number of people say that, like, when I enter that Bosch house, everyone smells like a murderer to me.
They're all certifiably insane.
Yep.
I wanted them to be more interesting for this. Maybe they'll be more interesting in later books.
You're wrong.
I'm
That
still
they'll be
curious
more
how,
interesting?
like,
That's sad.
I'm
No,
still-
you're wrong that they're not interesting already. Kato's awesome. Eureka's awesome. Bridger's awesome.
I don't
Sniper's
count Bridger as
awesome.
part of the Bash.
Okay.
Yeah,
He's not.
Yeah, he's not.
He lives there.
He's their abandoned fosterling that they're not taking enough care of.
And that
Okay,
like 3 of them
he's
know about.
still there.
No, he lives outside their house.
in like the cave.
He lives in the flower trench outside that is normally just for birds.
Do they own it?
No.
Oh, okay. And yeah, he's not part of their Bosch.
I mean, it isn't like a significant part of the world building here that like your identity is not correlated with your location.
But the entire city, the spectacle city of Cielo de Pájaros, is like a humanist city for the most part. Municipalities have hive allegiances one way or another for the most part.
Yeah, but Bosch is specifically a location.
Bosch is family.
Yeah, that it means good location. And it's where
Yeah,
like
well-
your family is.
Like in the history of bastardized words, the original meaning sometimes gets completely removed from it.
Well, it doesn't matter. Like, even if we accept my definition of a Bosch as a physical location where a family gathers together, if they don't own the space that Bridger is, then he's not part of their Bosch. So
Bridger is slumming it on public property.
good for him.
But most of them don't even know about Bridger in the first place.
Correct.
Right.
Bridger doesn't have a home anymore because that location has been compromised. So Bridger is even more homeless than he was at the start of this book.
Poor kid.
Do you think this is the way to raise God?
Praise God. I feel bad for Kato being forced to be humanist when he clearly wants to be utopian.
If I were Bridger, I would destroy the world. I mean, it sucks.
So clearly there is some sort of conflict coming, I think.
You think?
I'm wondering what the structure of the rest of the series looks like, because if a war breaks out, this series isn't about, I don't know, like we're not going to get, or if we get battle scenes of some sort, it's not going to be like the main focus. So I'm really curious as to what the plot of the rest of the series is going to be and how that war looks, particularly given the geopolitical scenario.
I would like to know if anyone thinks that there is a more extreme mismatch of values than humanist and utopian among the hives.
Mismatch. Yeah, probably the cousins and somebody.
Cousins and whoever's making the sets.
Yeah.
Cousins and humanists.
Yeah.
Cousins and the Masons, maybe.
Or them or Mitsubishi.
Okay. It does say that the people who mostly make the sets are Mitsubishi because it is a financial industry.
Well, we don't know very much about the Gordians or the Brillists at this point.
Aren't the Gordians brilliant?
We do not know a ton. They are the same
Brillists,
now.
yeah.
They didn't always used to be, which is a fun little bit of linguistic wordplay because it means that if you're referring to Brillists, it means that you are acknowledging the takeover of the Gordian Corporation by Brill's Institute for Psychotaxonomic Sciences. But if you call it Gordian, you're referencing its longer history as the first hive founded by Thomas Carlyle.
I still don't understand the brillists. They make no sense.
We also haven't seen much of them.
We don't
Outside
see
of
much of any of the hives, really, it feels.
Seen plenty of the humanists and the Mitsubishi.
Nope. We get a couple examples. Be happy with what you get of Felix Faust. He's their headmaster. He should be a good example to follow.
Yeah. I mean, like, I'm certain that Cornell Mason is totally emblematic of all the other Masons as well.
That's why you get Martin and
That's-
Mycroft.
The Familiares, yeah.
I like the reveal that the emperor is subjected to torture for like 5 days, and if he can't take it, then they pick somebody else. That's
Yeah, that's really interesting.
insane.
That's a way to make sure that the people who seek power are not at least cowards.
Yes, that they can at least stand up under certain levels of distress and pain, which in this world, I can't fault that. I can maybe fault the extremes to which someone hacked off Cornell Mason's foot
Piece by piece.
piece by piece. Yeah. That, which is an incredibly disturbing image.
Yeah. No, I can imagine the body horror I would find it like that happening to me as that's right, that is terrible.
Yep.
And it's contrasted against Mycroft's torture of this guy who's like, I'm a samurai. And just like, no, you're not. Like, you're a samurai, commit seppuku right now. Doesn't do it.
But he gave him a chance.
Gave him a chance.
But also, he was like young.
17.
So many
Right.
of the Martys were all just so young. And so was Mycroft. So, not a blanket excuse, but.
Did Minecraft blow up his own bash?
Maybe.
Oh, hey, it's not in this history, is it? I will explain my theorizing just from this book. I remember what I thought about To Like the Lightning, and I thought that the Albalonga think tank experiments that Mycroft was a part of and the Martys were a part of were one of the more inhumane things to do to children in this series. And that Mycroft snapped under the pressure. Possibly his parents were abusive, training him for God knows what. And Mycroft and Saladin killed up their own bash.
Mm.
They blew it up, and Saladin faked his own death, and Mycroft helped. Well, we'll get more about what happened to Mycroft in that, but
yeah, do we know what exactly like they were those experiments or whatever they were a part of?
No,
We're mostly given
Okay.
glimpses, basically, with the flashbacks
No.
in the closet. They're like, "Well, would you kill this other bash? Would you kill 5 bashes? No, man, killing one person's bad."
Ugh. Boo.
I know, right?
got to weed out the utilitarians.
I guess we know who the Saladin's here. I remember just hating Mycroft, and then hating him more when we found out what he did, and then hating him more when we met Saladin, and he's still hiding Saladin.
Yeah. Also, a quote that stuck out to me with that was Bridger's talking to Saladin, and like at the end, and he's trying to convince him to go off with him, for Bridger to go off with Saladin, and Saladin says, "You know who Mycroft is and what they did, right? Yeah, Mycroft doesn't keep secrets from me. I'm sure they say they don't."
Yeah.
There's also that section where there's the servicer and Carlisle, and then Mycroft's like, they both have very strong opinions on who Mycroft is, and Mycroft's like, look at these people, they both think they know me.
Mycroft Canner, world's biggest case of imposter syndrome.
He's a real chameleon.
His internal monologue.
Do you think he's capable of being honest?
To himself, he is, because
Really?
Okay. In very select instances, I think that he's being kind of. So there are those like asides that he gives when Carlisle is like going down his list of crimes, and his internal monologue of what he says actually happened, I think, is probably true. Like, she's like, "Oh, you did this to this person," and Mycroft said, "Well, actually, no, they lasted 30 seconds, not 45." Like I think that stuff is. I think that stuff's probably correct, but.
In the first half of the book, he couldn't do anything but tell the truth. If people were looking at him wrong, like, "Oh, I'm going to tell everybody about this problem in this Black Sakura," or "I'm going to tell the people what happened over here." And he was just telling everybody everything that happened in every other hive and spilling all the secrets. His own secrets? No, he's pretty good at keeping those.
He feels almost like a pathological liar to me.
I mean, I think he is.
Yeah,
I think he's absolutely a pathological liar, but I think a lot of those lies do extend into himself.
Yeah. I mean, there's the section where he finds Carlisle and Thisbe at the brothel, and he's like almost tells them the truth, and is like, "Oh, I can lie about this," and immediately goes off on like some lie about how they're each going to be like raped until they like it or whatever.
And then he's like, "Oh no, they found out I was lying, and now they don't trust me, and now I can't save them from real danger."
Yeah.
Fancy that.
I did like that whole conversation leading up to when they were going to see Madam. Like, that was a good building tension.
You would,
moment
sicko.
It's like, "Here, you can hit me over the head with this, and I'll be unconscious, and you can escape."
Yeah, just that whole, like, the extent to which Mycroft was going to prevent them from seeing her.
But then didn't.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mycroft.
He seems like he's at least conceiving this as like, okay, he's got like he's a man that needs to keep all these plates spinning, you know?
Yeah.
Him and Jed are, like, holding up the world. Well, Jed is holding the world order, like, up single-handedly, but, like, Mycroft could pretty single-handedly tip that balance.
I
Agree or disagree? Mycroft is one of the most interesting narrators you've read.
I'll let you know when I've read more of him.
When you've read the second half of this book.
Yeah.
No, I'm inclined to agree. Like, even when he has his, like, paragraphs about, like, pronouns or asides about philosophers that go on for, like, a page, it's done in a way that, like, sometimes it's a bit long-winded. He's self-aware in terms of how he's writing it, which is interesting.
Yeah, with Dear Reader and the thous. Yeah,
Yeah.
I honestly love it every time he does that.
To me, it's not really necessarily criticism, but he feels like he's in such direct dialogue with Severian, like in Severian's style. That's what I'm thinking of when I read Mycroft at the moment.
I agree.
Yeah.
The big difference being I can actually tell what's physically happening on the page in this story. Or more easily, at least.
I think he's directly based on Severian to an extent, in that being a former. You thought of what the worst job anybody could ever do, and then you write a character that did that job, and then
Yeah.
you explore it from there.
And the narrative style is very similar. Like there's all sorts of asides to the reader. They're executed differently, executed with inspiration from a lot of other sources as well.
And their characters are very different too.
The characters are different, but I think I can see very clearly how one inspired the other.
Hmm.
Oh, I think it's really funny how Saladin explicitly calls himself a torturer. And I think the implication is Mycroft, too, is a torturer, not an assassin.
Yeah, that was very interesting.
I think it's also interesting how they are both cannibals.
Yeah. Do you think it's interesting how they made Mycroft's pacemaker?
Oh, I forgot.
The canner beat? With the,
Yep.
like, his heartbeat as he's doing stuff to people, right?
Yeah, Canterbeat's cool. Canterbeat on the Too Rash to Unadvised podcast has been called the least believable thing about this story.
Nope, don't buy that.
No.
I don't buy that either. I don't either. I think that a heartbeat
Kid
can
bringing-
absolutely do crazy things to a human psyche.
This story
Telltale
has
Heart,
like
yeah.
tiny army men coming to life.
That's what I was That's like my first, yep.
Also, the cars and the sets.
The cars are, you just kind of have to accept that they are technology that works the way they say they do, though the speeds that they say they do are inaccurate.
Nah, I totally buy the fact that there are still individually used cars in the planet 400 years from now.
God, what a horrible thought.
Maybe in the like Vatican reservation as they
Yeah, maybe in the
let's see,
Vatican.
yeah.
Maybe the Pope Mobile still exists.
Which that's interesting. I'm curious to see what other reservations there are for things that are no longer acceptable in society.
Do we know how things are powered in this
No.
society?
Absolutely not.
Magic, actual magic.
Oh,
Yeah. All we know is the length of time that the Senior Weeks Booth computers can stay up even on auxiliary power, which is like 2 weeks.
So there's like 12 of them in the bash, you said. This does not feel like enough people to maintain the system. Like, it seems like recklessly dangerous or like, it's like totally inconsiderate over like the redundancies that you would want to have just for this system to be in place. Not even the backup systems.
Well, their Bapas all died.
Oh, yeah. I haven't replaced them in what, 13 years?
Yeah. I feel like it was like 5 years ago or something.
Okay.
when they killed them, like
I mean, even so, like, this is ridiculous. Like, the system, literally the whole world runs on. And
like two
they
people,
don't,
right?
they, like, have two people running the actual, like, computations for it.
The fewer people there are, the less likely secrets are going to get out.
Ah, yeah. I mean, like, I see it from their perspective, like, they're assassins, but, like, why
Right, yes.
why is the rest of the world allowing this? So why is Cornell Mason not, like, knocking down the door and be like, okay, this is unacceptable?
That's why they're part of the humanist hive.
You said, well, because Mason's, they're all, isn't it implied at the end that all the world leaders are in on it, basically?
But like half of them are,
Or, okay. I'll have to go back and look.
and the other half are quite upset. But Cornell was not in on it. He was not one of
Oh,
them.
okay. All right.
Yeah, they have people in high places protecting them, and they're part of the Humanist Bash, which is all about like picking yourself up by your own boots.
Individual
Really cool
excellence. And if one bash can run the computers that run the transit network for 10 billion people in the globe, then isn't that bash amazing?
Does Eureka not need to sleep?
Eureka does need to sleep, but their need for sleep with anti-sleeps is like much lesser than we might consider that need in today's era.
Uh-huh.
Like I think they can go 5 days or something without sleeping.
But so the system still needs to stay up, right? And the sets are keeping the system up. Like
Well,
two
that's why they
sets.
alternate. Yeah.
So it's really one person running the system at a time.
I don't think that the sets are not required to operate the system. They're required to maintain the system.
But they're like routing, like, aren't they?
They are making adjustments to the system to teach it how to route correctly.
I see.
So it's, okay. Makes sense.
This still like really goes beyond like I'll accept it for the purpose of the story, but sets are like the most nonsense thing I think I've read in a while.
There's no way you can review 10 billion. It's a full 10 billion points of light that they are analyzing in like, what did they say, 20 times speed?
Yeah, and they are anticipating people's needs. They're not even responding. So like scheduling is a famously hard problem in computer science. It is famously unsolvable, and they are doing it all the time for 10 billion people.
I assume that they just throw extra cars at the problem and they just give everything like a grace period and a window. And they're trying to reduce the inefficiencies.
Yeah, like adding extra lanes to a highway solves congestion, right?
Wow,
Even
Kieran.
so. Yeah, congestion, yeah. I mean, I'm on the same train as you here, and don't worry.
I think it was you, Kip, in the last episode that said that this is kind of like science fantasy, and this is the type of thing that I'm inclined. It makes me think that.
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
I would say that a lot of scheduling and like supply issues are solved when you have 10,000 kilometer an hour flying cars all across the entire globe.
Yeah, like 30, 40 billion of them, maybe. I don't know.
Okay, I got a question. Would you take the even not knowing that there's assassinations going on? Would you take the Senior Weeks booth ones or the Utopian ones?
I would take
Well,
the Utopian.
Yeah, probably.
Because Kip would be Utopian, and the Utopian's the only one's allowed to use that, and Jed. But
No, anyone's allowed to request a Utopian car. They just have to pay the Utopians instead of the Humanists, and they have to be a little bit slower.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I would take the Humanists.
I mean, like the whole system feels kind of icky to me in the first place, but
yeah, it's the whole world order.
Mars or bust.
Yeah, held together by strings, based on like fairly weak.
It seems so flimsy.
Yeah, like the whole thing's ripe for collapse.
Ash, I totally understand not wanting to take any of the car system because your true place in the world is not on this planet. It's in Luna City or on Mars.
Yeah, so true.
And space shuttles are the only way to actually get transport. I want to be on an interstellar tug going past the rings of Triton.
I'm excited to eventually see Lunar City, hopefully, presumably.
So it's said that like being on Luna City is like ruinously expensive. I don't understand that.
Well, you got to pay for everything. But yeah, I also don't incredibly understand that.
Like, what's the difference between these cars and actual spaceships?
Orbital capability? I don't know.
Magic?
Translunar capability.
No, I'm with Huron on this one. Magic.
Yeah, it's magic. Why can't they magic the moon better? I don't know. Why can't they magic Mars better?
Maybe these cars don't have like internal atmosphere supplies.
Maybe they use the Earth's magnetic field to fly.
Maybe they only like scoop up atmosphere and deliver that to the cabin after some conditioning. They don't actually like store it.
It seems that energy is a problem that is solved in this world, or else these cars could
Yes,
exist.
it does. Yes, it does.
If energy is solved, you've basically solved the economics of space travel, right? At least to the moon.
You haven't solved the economics of space travel purely with solved energy, because you still have to create a biosphere, and that is a complicated task.
But you can still like truck infinite materials over, right? Basically, you solved energy. You can truck as many materials over as you want. Why is it expensive to do that?
Maybe rocket propellant is harder to get.
We talk
Maybe they
about
still have to
something
deal
else.
with reaction mass. I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, I think this is nonsense. I think this is like Dr. Ada Palmer. I think she has probably a good grasp of history and philosophy. I don't think she has a great grasp of the actual sciences involved. Nor
If
does she need to for this story to
if I
work.
were listening to this episode, I would have fast forwarded the last 5 minutes.
None of the barriers to lunar or Martian colonization in this series are portrayed as purely technological.
Hmm.
The time scale is portrayed as technological. We get 250 years until Mars is terraformed, until it's done, until it's a
Yeah,
complete second Earth that we can inhabit.
they're like launching meteors or something at it, or asteroids,
Oh yeah,
Yep.
comets, and whatnot.
I'm very curious to see the time scale of the whole series, and where certainly book 2 is going to be right after this, and a
maybe
continuation
longer
of
than a
this.
few days.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, look, actually, I don't think so, because isn't it like we get 3 or 4 days here, and presumably book 2 is the rest of that?
Yeah, book 2 is actually shorter than book 1.
Yeah, but like, so then in that sense, how far out in the future are books 3 and 4, and what's that's again more just a
All I'll
speculation.
say is that the total time scale of the series is longer than 2 weeks.
Okay.
Imagine an episode of 24. That's book 3.
In the context of where the series is going, Mycroft says this thing to the reader. In my age, we have come anew to see history as driven not by DNA and economics, but by man and woman, and so must you. Which, I mean, like, feels like there's a lot there.
Already, he's reinforcing that gender dichotomy.
Yeah. But also, like, he really seems to be pushing a great man theory of history here. Yeah, he's saying it's not DNA and economics, which that's very unpopular stance for modern historians. Like, great man history is not popular, nor should it be. I think it's.
But it's the story he's writing, so he's going to
It's the
try and
story he's
defend
writing.
it.
Yeah, so he feels like he's slanting things like deliberately to be like, oh, these big movers and shakers of the world are the ones that actually have the power, and like it feels like he's introducing like an endless series of, and now here's another most important person in the world kind of thing, you know, like here's the censor, here's the emperor, here's the leader of the cousins, here's Jed, here's whoever. Like everyone feels like they have proper nouns in their names.
Titles, epithets.
The Chevalier.
Yeah, Jed seems fairly unique in that, but like I think his unique place in this system and society is fairly well fleshed out. But yeah, the rest of them, it feels like, oh, all of the main characters are the most important people in the world is the chapter. So not all of the main characters,
Okay.
but a lot of them.
Got 2 more questions before I think we should call it a day, both from Sun Gamer. And the first one, I think we can be fairly fast in the first half of it. Did you figure out the twist regarding the Sneer Weeks Booth Bash before the final interlude? Do you think they're justified if they're preventing war the way it's suggested they are?
I'll say no. And even this time, I forgot that the suicides were part of the quote suicides were part of their assassinations. I remember the assassinations. I just forgot that the suicides were included.
It's the most common cause of death in this era, so most common shield.
Which that in of itself is interesting and says something about the repression or
I think it just says something about the decline of heart disease.
Yeah, that's true.
Because if you take out like some things that would probably be solvable in 300 years from current day death statistics, suicide immediately jumps to the top.
Yeah.
true. Yeah.
Okay, good point that it being at the top doesn't really mean much, but we really should see the numbers if we want to make any judgments, right?
Yeah.
Agreed.
Let's say it's like 5 times the rate it is now. Right now, it's not good, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, especially
Not
if you look at specific countries. Yeah.
Let's also assume that people are healthy another extra like 60 years or longer.
Yeah.
yeah, and do they count like death by old age, or do they actually know how people died and that's how it's put down?
I think they count death by old age in this era.
Okay.
I don't think the utopians do, though.
Well, yeah, that
It's suicide by cellular degradation. You know, the telomeres just keep getting shorter, and the cells are doing it to themselves. So
They were born. They knew they were going to die. It's their own fault.
yeah,
Look, you didn't cryogenically freeze yourself. It's your fault.
yeah. Did I foresee it? No, I was bored by Sneer Weeks Booth. So I didn't spend much time thinking about them. And then, is it justified? I'm a consequentialist, so if it works, it works. I don't know if it works though. I haven't seen the full context, so maybe it doesn't work.
Okay.
I have some like quick fire thoughts before
Sure.
the episode ends. So
Yeah,
The episode is going to end on how does this book's use of pronouns and gender help you in your current everyday life understand gender better? And has it?
real quick, I just wanted to go and say, yeah, I also did not see the twist coming. Whether or not it's justified, I think I want to come back to this after the end of certainly
Seven
book
Surrenders?
2.
yeah.
Okay.
So first of all, there's a point in the book where it's like, I've translated Latin, but since I'm doing so in secret from both Martin and Mycroft, you have to bear with my mediocre skills. -9A. So this, as I said in the last episode, this book has definitely been altered by the other agents. I guess 9A, whoever this person is the one who's done like the final editorial pass on this book. I don't know who it is, but it feels very important that they're here and they're altering the story. And perhaps they're doing so in ways that they're not making clear all the time.
I think you should have half an idea who 9A is.
Yeah. Do you have any guesses?
No, ask me again next episode.
Okay.
Okay.
Someone in Romanova is the only thing I can think of. Like, I don't know, like
I mean, I even had. Okay.
I don't know.
I
Like,
haven't put any thought into it. I read this like this morning.
Okay.
I don't know. Like maybe.
Okay.
Mycroft says, in Greece, you have to choose between Athens and Sparta, wisdom and strength, two assets which no emperor can afford to privilege one over the other. Spartans sucked. They did not exemplify strength. This is like the biggest piece of historical propaganda ever.
Yeah, well, look who it's coming from.
yeah, exactly. Totally deliberate. Mycroft is talking about the cousin system. It's like, oh, they submit this feedback system, and people are like, oh, fix this school or invest in this fund or whatever. And oh, it's a great system when it works. He says they get it done. This vast cooperative family, it works. At least if outsiders have not infiltrated and sunk their fangs into its living heart. Yes, Mycroft, bad actors are the big problem of politics, and how you deal with them is like, I don't think there's been any solution. Yes, the Kuns have totally been influenced and infiltrated by these bad actors. I don't see a reason for them not to have been. I don't see how their system could be resilient against that. And then I really liked this part where they're talking about the sets and the influence parents have their own children. Gasala tried to smile. Exactly. I respect your concern, Carlisle. I really do. But the law's clear. However you raise your kid, you're pushing them in some direction, shaping them with languages, if nothing else. So long as the direction you push is going to make them productive and happy, there's no justification for interference. It's legal to raise a set. It's legal to raise an Italian. It's legal to raise a cousin. And it's legal to raise an 18th century lady or gentleman. Right, Thisman?
Not legal to raise a Hindu.
Yeah.
Yup.
Yeah, right? Like there's a
Yup.
contradiction in the system right now. Yeah. There's actually like I'm not going to talk about David Foster Wallace, but yeah, like whatever you do with children, you're making some kind of a value judgment or like you're imposing things on them. Like we tend to think of human personalities as shaped by nature or nurture or both, and both of these are not really in the control of the child.
It's unavoidable.
Yeah.
And did you notice that they still required productivity from children?
Yes. I mean, 20 hours of productivity, so much less.
20 hours. It's less, but is that still something that should be discussed as an inherent good trait in children, that they must be productive?
I think it's kind of a necessity if you want a society to work. People have to contribute to the society, at least barring like the culture kind of technology where it's just like, everything is solved. We don't need to worry about it. Like, the cultures do need to be productive in order to function. So,
yeah.
The extent to which children must be productive is definitely a discussion that should be had.
Is the child going to result, like the raising a child going to result in an adult that's productive, I think is the thing here.
Yeah.
They don't need child labor, I think.
Yeah.
I think that like there's a real perverse incentive when it comes to sets specifically, because the sets seem to be quietly running the world. And it requires extreme intervention. And like there's clearly like not pure motives on the part of the people who are raising the sets or creating the sets.
That's why all the leaders got so mad about, or at least was it Felix or whichever one of them brought up the fact that the Mitsubishi were trying to have like their secret.
It was Felix, yeah.
Family. Yeah. Like that's why they got so angry, because like, hey, if these people they could gain and exert a lot of power if they gain certain levels of influence in the hives, and all controlled by Mitsubishi, or most presumably.
Yep.
Yeah, if you're able to mold children's brains so that they have the powers of a set, you can probably mold them to be absolutely loyal to you as well, or like sleeper agents in some way. Oh no, their training was totally unfinished. Yeah, totally, absolutely.
I do think it would be terrible to be a half completed set.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know what goes into it. So.
They don't guarantee your happiness until the process is done.
Oh, is that the case? That's so funny.
I mean, every set that we see is happy.
What if half of them are guaranteed happiness and the other half they just kill them?
Oh,
Oh yeah. Everyone that we see is happy. That is interesting, actually, right? Like, is happiness just like something that's been encoded into them at this point?
I mean, that's
Is that
what
ethical?
Carlisle opens up his interview with at the beginning. Every set that I've met has been happy, but like if they can make you think like a computer, then maybe they can make you think you're happy. Carlisle's not willing to trust self-verified happiness from a set.
Is it any different from actually being happy though?
I don't think Carlisle can know that.
Yeah, I think it's unknowable. Like the Faust had a good point. Like, these are not humans anymore. Whatever they are, they're not human. Can't
I
relate
think
to them,
Faust
basically.
also has no leg to stand on there.
You don't think so?
Because doesn't he say, oh well, like, or someone comments that he would also then just use them for his own experiments, right?
Yeah. We'll accept them for experimentation.
Yeah.
We experiment on animals all the time, but they're not human, so
Yeah.
don't want to see.
Well,
Yep.
he doesn't see them as human. I think it's fair.
It's
to
not
not see them as
hypocritical.
human. It's
He sees them as further than chimpanzees, further than you beasts, further than in any comparison.
Yeah.
No longer human. And I think they're just a different type of human. And we made a cool new type of human, and that's fine.
Yeah, it is a very transhuman type of
I think it's a level of divergence that, like, okay, it's not human, it's something else. Whether or not that's good or bad is up for debate. But like, this is a degree of difference that, like, calling them the same thing is misleading.
My version of humanism is not about limiting what a human can be.
I think it's transhumanist at the very least.
Yeah.
They have, in some ways, transcended normal, mundane humanity.
That sounds like a bad guy monologue.
I do believe that they are immune to certain logical fallacies.
Yeah, maybe. Like, actually physically incapable of them. Yeah, I'd buy
Yeah.
that.
Like, you can't just confuse a set by starting to mention numbers larger than 1,000.
Yeah, you can't gish gallop over them either, I
Yeah.
imagine.
No, they're going to remember all the points, and they're going to debate them all individually. And they're going to be good at that, no matter how large the number sets get from a baseline human. Would require another set to give them a data set that would be large enough to even potentially confuse them.
So we've seen a lot about what they can do. I'm curious. There's a lot that they can't do, right? Like, their senses have been co-opted for these purposes. I'd be more curious as to hear what has been taken away in order to enable these abilities in the first place.
Well, it does seem like pain was taken away.
Yeah, maybe this is why they're happy.
But yes, specifics about the sets and about Brillism are both going to be a little hard to find in this series.
Oh, boo.
Oh, we never
No,
did. Okay.
You can't introduce these concepts, Dr. Palmer, and not have like more. Well, I'll make a judgment on that after I finish the series, I guess. But if there's not more to the mechanics of sets, I'll be disappointed.
Okay. You want to get into the neurochemistry?
I don't necessarily need that. I would like to have a complete picture of what a set is, I think.
Okay.
They're a set.
They're a
They said
set.
that.
Yeah, their numbers don't change. That's what they mean. Their Brillis set has been selected and locked in. There's no growth, no deviation, no change after that process has happened.
And what that means is so ambiguous.
Just a little bit.
I don't really understand Bliss.
We don't speak German, so
Speak German, yeah. I mean, like, can they have their minds changed?
with new information.
Their function, if you put in the same numbers, you're going to get the same numbers back.
But okay, but can they update? I guess they can't update their model for anything, right? Can, like, you change the way a set thinks about the world?
You'd probably have to change their
Not in like a baseline way. No, you can't. Like a Cartesian set will always think like a Cartesian set.
Yeah, so that's like you can't really rewire their brain at this point. Like that's not plastic. It seems like it's crystallized.
Not without like surgical intervention. No.
Yeah. Yeah. Highly suspect.
That's like asking, like, can you tell someone to just like stop graphing functions inside their head and checking for local maxima and minima?
I guess that's all they do.
You could tell anybody to do that. You
If
could
they're a
tell anybody anything.
mathematician and you give them a function, like, they're probably going to do it, right? Especially if they can do it in half a second just instinctively.
Yeah, like you had von Neumann doing all these things. Maybe they're all just von Neumanns. Is the name von Neumann brought up in the series at all?
I don't think so.
Yes,
Disappointing.
I think so.
Yes.
Oh,
Okay.
I think
good.
it is. Yep.
So, okay, the Anonymous. Who are they? And not in a like, what is their identity, but like, are they
The
the head of one
premier
of the hives?
essayist.
Okay, but what hive are they associated with?
They're an
Are they
anonymous
associated?
essayist. They are not
Okay, so
associated with a hive.
okay, so it's just
Yeah.
like a 710 list thing, or
No, they
No.
like regularly publish essays.
oh, okay,
Like
right.
there's like a perfectly rational political commentator that everyone could just like, well, we have the Anonymous, we don't need other sources, I guess.
All right.
You remember
Okay.
Peter and Valentine Wiggin in Ender's Game?
Yes.
Yes.
Like that.
Well, well, it's a different scenario. That helps.
Except a successive position.
Well, yeah. That's the
Yeah.
which is why it was then a big deal that.
Do we
their
know what
identity
number the
got.
current Anonymous is?
I don't think.
I do. I don't think the story has said.
Okay.
Yep. We do get some quotes from I think the second and the fourth anonymouses, but I think that's about all we know regarding the numbers.
But it seems that the cousin, what's the Briar is her name?
Briar Kosala. Yep.
Yeah. They seem to recognize each other at least.
Yes. It seems like a lot of people know who the anonymous is, and it does seem like the world at large has learned the identity of this anonymous.
I thought the Anonymous becomes
Specifically, before this book's publication, the world has
Ah,
learned the identity of
okay.
the anonymous portrayed in these events. The Conte du Guisset.
Yeah, because they said that the person who discovers the identity becomes the next Anonymous.
But in this world, our narrator is still pretending like that unmasking hasn't happened yet because he's telling a time of the past.
He's so fussy about introducing new characters. It's very funny.
I kind of like it because he get
I love it.
yeah.
I really love it.
Last book, I said that I would bring up again Cato Weeksbooth, and Mycroft said that he would introduce him at a time when he was feeling more like himself. Do you feel like Cato was feeling more like himself in any of these chapters? And if so, what does that say about Cato?
Cato know who Cato is?
I think probably depends on how close they are to having to carry out their assassination.
Cato is most interesting to me because of his name. I still don't. I'm still curious as to the original Cato really wore his heart on his sleeve, and I guess this Cato does as well, and was like an incredibly principled person to the degree that he refused to be pardoned by Caesar, instead ripping his own guts out. And then someone found him and bandaged him up, and he ripped them open again and died that way. I'm curious as to how many similarities this Cato has to that person.
We'll find out. Storm, you got any more questions?
I think I'm good for now. Yeah.
Okay. Then let's talk about how this book has possibly informed how we think of gender in our own lives.
It hasn't really for me. I suspect my priors might be different than Dr. Palmer's, but it's fun to discuss in the context of the book.
The more I read this book, the more I'm confused about what feminine and masculine are.
I think anyone who's, I don't know, thought critically about gender has thought most of these thoughts. Sure, it's interesting when Mycroft brings up inconsistencies in the way that we think about gender and in ways gender has been thought about historically. But I think me, who's not really even into gender theory or I don't know, whatever is popular now. I mean, I've considered most of these things anyway, and I like it as a way to think more about it, but I can't say that it's anything new, if that makes sense.
Sure. Yeah. I think its impression on me has mostly been because I've been reading these books so much that I can't help but thinking about them.
Yeah.
You started to just like slowly become Mycroft Canner. You've heard his
Wow.
voice in your ear too many times.
So mostly for me, it's been thoughts about these books and this world in particular, and gender in this world in particular, and me wondering what is up with Sniper
Yeah.
and what kind of performative gender masterpiece is Sniper doing?
It's a fun
Yeah.
word to use in that context.
Performative. Yeah, I'd say for me it hasn't. I'm a gay male. I'm in a lot of queer spaces, so a lot. So these are things that I'm think about a lot in term, or at least I'm exposed to a lot. So it didn't meaningfully change how I kind of similar to like what Karen said, but for obviously different reasons. Like I've been exposed to and thought about a lot of these things before, so it hasn't necessarily significantly changed how I think about it, other than being confused often with how Mycroft, how someone is presenting themselves based off of the pronouns Mycroft is using. But yeah, so I would say it hasn't significantly changed how I view or think about gender, but I'm appreciating that the story is using gender the way it is, and that this is a modern science fiction story that basically, yeah, I think I'm appreciating how the story is using gender, even if Mycroft's use of pronouns is confusing at times.
Okay. This read through, I am trying to fasten different anime labels onto the different characters and examine how many of them are Bishonen and twinks and various degrees of murderous.
I hadn't
What was
put
that
the
last
twink
one?
label on.
Varying degrees of murderous.
Murderous? Like a femme
Yep.
fatale?
Yeah, like how willing are these characters to consider murder?
That's an anime
And
trope?
how quickly does their mind go to it? Specifically with like certain villain and hero types, yeah.
And the twink too?
Yep.
There do
Okay.
seem to be a lot of twinks in this story.
It seems like a lot of the characters seem to be canonically attractive in some way, shape, or form. Seems to be a
Maybe
say-
it's for Minecraft. I don't know.
I was confused, or I shouldn't say confused. I was a little surprised by the inclusion of Tezuka in the acknowledgments at the end of the book.
Oh, who's that?
Tezuka? He's the guy who made Astro Boy.
Oh, okay.
My mind goes to Takashi Tezuka, which is the Nintendo person, but
Who? I don't know him.
he was one of the big people like involved with a lot of the earlier Mario games
Mm.
and a lot of Nintendo stuff or various Nintendo things. I know Mario in particular.
I feel guilty for not knowing him then.
Then I think we're about done here. Join us next time for Seven Surrenders Part 1.
I'm excited.
I am
Yeah.
as well.
I'm very excited too. Thank you for joining this little corner of Craig's Media Empire, and thank you to listening to us all through it. Thanks Horizon Brave for getting us all started, and our intro and outro music is Galactic Images by the Jingle Punks. Bye, all.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.